we judge ourselves for what we perceive as our flaw. Or we think, oh, I'm not very good at this. I'm good at this. But if only I was a bit better at that. And they say, you have no idea how that is holding you in place. That thing that you perceive as your problem, your wrinkle, your crease, they say that is giving balance to all the other things on the left. So you think that's a problem, but actually, that is actually holding you in place. And so they were just really encouraging us to have a much lighter touch around our personal judgment of our own assessment of how open we are or aren't or should be or shouldn't. They said the more you can come from a place of curiosity and exploration, the more a lot of that competitive with self agenda that most of us have been trained into will start to dissipate and dissolve.
Very helpful. When I first started doing a little research into who is this Lee Harris guy anyway, I ran into a video of one of your energy updates. And it was the energy update here for December in 2025. And I have to say, my jaw fell out of my mouth and onto the floor during the first 10 minutes in a positive way, in that I felt so reflected in the energy update you were giving. And you were describing this time as one of an elevation in frequency. And I know these are general, broad language, but it worked for me when I could feel it, this elevation, and also this sense that many people listening may have come through a really difficult period where they felt the old constructions were being disassembled in some way. And I was like, wow, whatever intelligences Lee Harris is bringing through right now, they're reflecting the journey I feel like I've been on and have now come through in a new place of feeling this different elevated energy. And I thought to myself, what I want to hear from Lee is for people who are hearing that are like, wow, I'm still in the disassemblage phase. I'm not feeling this positive, elevated uplift of potential and power for the next few years. I'm still feeling crushed in some way. If you could address their situation and help.
Yeah. Well, firstly, when I do the energy updates, there are always 8 themes. And so my hope, although it's kind of out of my hands because it's intuited, so I never fully understand how it is or isn't landing for people. My hope is that people might identify with at least a few of the themes, but there will be some, of course, they won't find themselves in. And you have to speak quite broadly. But at the same time, I try and be as specific as I can. My feeling and my experience, both having gone through some major dark night of the soul transformations myself that lasted quite a long time, not just, a month or two, but a year or 2 or 3. And having witnessed other people do that, I feel like the size of the depth plunge, how far you go down and for how long you go down, can be paralleled by where it might come up when it starts going the other way. And that's always a good thing to remember, particularly if you're really sick of being in a tough place, which I think most of us get to. I know for myself, when I've been depressed or down or really struggling, it's very hard. The worst thing that someone can say to you is think positive, because you don't feel positive and you certainly don't want to think positive. If anything, what I learned through that process, because I used to fight that a lot, was the more I surrendered to it and the more I didn't try and judge myself for what I was feeling, but allowed myself to feel and move through what I was needing to feel, the sooner and the smoother it would start to go. So I think for anyone what I would say is, if that is your truth, so your question, Tammy, if someone was in that really tough place and they weren't feeling positive, make 2026 the year of you. Now, the single parent who is overworked just heard that and went, how the hell do I make it the year of me and I get it. but by your standards, make it the year of you. So it might not mean that you have the luxury of thinking about yourself all week. Very few people do. But you have to start including that because our life is something that we can reconstruct. And sometimes we're capable of making big changes, and sometimes our circumstances mean we can only make small changes. So, for example, the times I lived in very small apartments, but I didn't have a yard or anything, I learned that I had to go to the park. And if I took myself to the park, I got my nature fix, my nervous system reset. And if I didn't, then I wouldn't experience what I needed to experience. So there are always small things that we can do to bring to ourselves what we need. And so I think if you have been suffering and struggling for a long time, I'm always a big advocate of what support do I need to bring in next? Because you never want to suffer alone for too long. The longer we're in isolation, the more it starts to turn on you. That's what there was a quote from the Z's many years ago where they said, "Isolation is healing until it becomes the enemy." At a certain point, the isolation that once healed you, you might not notice. You might get habituated to staying away from everybody for a year. And in year two, it was time to start going out a bit more. But you got so habituated and you got so scared, you kind of felt like you forgot how to socialize. You just didn't take yourself back out. And you do it gently. Go to one social thing every 2 weeks and then adjust. So I think if you really feel that low, you have to make yourself the priority next year. And that will include throwing whatever support you can find at the problem. If you're feeling depressed a lot, are you finding helpful videos or articles on depression? Do you have friends in your midst who've been through it? Talk to them, get support. Are you capable of finding a mentor? Maybe you have the money to be able to hire a mentor or a therapist or a healer. So there are lots of different ways we can tackle it, but know that it is not normal. Know that the state that you are in is not normal and it is not supposed to be your future. Now, if you're someone who lives with chemical imbalances, or you recognize depression is a part of you and it might be cyclical in your life, then this is the time, if you haven't already, to develop tools that can help you when you're in one of those cycles. And that's also you making 2026 the year of you.